The pros and cons of offensive humor. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and to celebrate reaching 3,000 subscribers yesterday, I ended up live streaming on my channel for over 6 hours or so with a bunch of YouTube personalities I have made friends with over the past few months.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I myself hope to achieve that accomplishment.
I drank a bit, of course, and we ended up playing Quiplash, which, if you haven't seen people play before, generally turns out as offensive as Cards Against Humanity.
Sounds like a game I could really get into myself.
After I was done, I looked at my sub count and it appeared I had lost at least 5 subscribers towards the end of the game. Apparently, I forgot about the fact that my channel is usually one of the nicer channels that criticizes fourth wave intersectional feminist social justice types, and that many of the members of my audience probably expect my channel to be relatively non-offensive.
Well, you can't please everyone all the time. You'll make it up in the long run.
Oops. You see, in Quiplash, at the beginning of each round, you are asked a question or two, and you are supposed to type in an answer. Your answer will be compared to the other answers, and whoever is playing can vote on which answer is the best. Given that you have a limited amount of time and characters to answer each question with, and also knowing the current cultural climate where everybody has been afraid to say anything that might potentially offend somebody for like the past 4 years or so, many of the answers in Quiplash end up being very deliberately offensive. Often, the only thing funny about them is that they are offensive. And I think in the context of Quiplash, offensive humor is perfectly okay.
Yes, offensive jokes are okay, especially when you're playing with friends who can look at a joke lightheartedly. It's a game, and games are meant to be fun.
One of the jokes that I made, for example, which resulted in a Quiplash, which means that you received the vote from every player that round, was in response to the question, how do you spot a fake Rolex? My answer was that the owner of the Rolex is either black or Jewish.
That's hilarious. I'd have voted for that one too.
As soon as people read it, there was a loud combination of laughter and groaning, kind of like the oh sort of a thing, you've all heard it. Once it turned out that everybody voted for it and they realized that it had been me who made that joke, the first thing somebody said was like, I can't believe Prince made that joke. And then they all said, well, yeah, but we all voted for it, so we're no better.
That is when you know you are in a good group of people. They can take an offensive joke, understand the humor, yet realize it's not sociably acceptable. I'd say their hearts are in the right place, but value comedy and laughter.
Now, in the context of this video that you are watching at the moment, I cannot really defend the humor of that joke. It is obviously extremely racist and anti-Semitic to say that black and Jewish people presumably always wear fake Rolexes. More so, it's actually just not all that funny. If a comedian went to a local comedy club, even the most bro-tastic white guy venue full of politically correct humor and rape jokes, if he went up on stage and said, how do you know if a Rolex is fake? Well, the owner of it is black or Jewish. The comedian would be booed or heckled off stage immediately.
I really don't believe that at all. Of course, it would depend on the location of the comedy club. I'd assume that the coastal states would have a harder time accepting that joke, but also it depends on how well the joke was formed and the line was delivered.
You see, the only funny thing about the joke is that it is offensive. And if that's all you have to deliver, chances are you aren't a very funny person, or you are legitimately just really bigoted and awful. Though that might imply that maybe you weren't joking at all.
I'd have to disagree with you again. I really don't consider comedians like George Carlin, Louis C.K., Lisa Lampanelli, and Daniel Tosh lazy. They include jokes that are offensive to race, gender, and sexual orientation, and I don't consider them to be racist, misogynist, or homophobic. They take observed social interaction of society and craft their jokes around it.
When playing a stupid game like Quiplash, where half of us are drinking and are barely paying attention anyway, and you have a limited amount of time to answer the questions, it is totally excusable to make offensive humor, in my opinion. Incest jokes, crude sex jokes, gay jokes, rape jokes, AIDS jokes, racist jokes, and every other type of joke is completely fair game as far as I'm concerned. Actually, half of the point of Quiplash to most people I know is seeing who can be the most cleverly offensive. Finding ways to make every answer completely inappropriate is like basically the point.
Considering there is a time limit to answer, offensive jokes would be less skillfully crafted. But blaming the possible offensiveness on drinking is a cop-out in my opinion. Me personally, I could come up with these jokes cold sober. It's just my type of humor.
That all said, my general sense of humor is a lot different, if you note from my videos. I almost never use inherently offensive jokes or even language in my videos, not just because I try to be one of those channels that serves as the gateway drug between being an SJW or feminist and being a more realistic and well-adjusted person, but also because I just think that those types of jokes are kinda lazy.
Fair enough.
When I have somebody's undivided attention, I would rather try to impress them with my more well thought out and carefully crafted witty remarks, if I am humbly so lucky to be perceived that way. That said, I would encourage everybody to work hard in their attempts at jokes, instead of just relying on shock value humor, which is often very repetitive and purposefully just offensive. If you want people to laugh in this day and age with an internet that can provide you with bestiality porn if you try hard enough, you might also want to make sure it's a legitimately funny joke. Don't be lazy.
I think you can make the same stereotypical jokes in multitudes of different ways. If that is your humor, you're going to gravitate to that sort of joke telling. It comes down to personal preference.
I'll give an example of this type of laziness that I remember on the internet. Last decade, I used to use an electronic music message board which had thousands of people. At first, it was really diverse and non-homophobic because once upon a time, the rave scene had tons of queer people, if you can believe it, from this day and age. Eventually, it was basically overrun by rednecks,
Wow, that's not offensive or stereotypical at all.
as the rave scene ended up being taken over by the suburbs and rural type people. After a while, people would often accidentally leave themselves logged into the message board on other people's computers, or maybe a friend would use their computer at their house, and they'd realize that they could post on the message board with their friend's screen name. People would use that opportunity to make a joke at their friend's expense, and 9 times out of 10, or maybe more like 99 times out of 100, the joke would be the same.
Let me guess. His friend typed in the status bar that he was deciding to come out to be gay, didn't he?
It would be a straight guy who was logged in, and his friend would write, "Hey everybody, I have been wanting to admit this for a long time, but I don't know how to tell everybody. I'm actually gay. I like it in the butt."
Nailed it.
Apparently, every straight dude on that message board thought this was hilarious because they never came up with a new joke. I can only imagine him giggling to himself so loud that his friend, who was presumably shitting in the bathroom, would yell, "Dude, are you telling everybody on the techno message board that I'm gay or something? I can hear you giggling."
I don't think it's a particularly funny joke either to the outsiders of the friendship. Between the person having his account taken over and the hacker, the two friends are just giving each other a hard time.
And he'd be right, of course, because that was literally the same joke that they used for years. Now, first off, it's not a particularly funny joke by itself, just in terms of being clever.
Again, it wasn't about being clever, it's about giving your buddy a hard time.
But more so, there's many other options of jokes that you can make if your friend is logged onto something on the internet. Years later, I once saw somebody who used to be on that message board and was a DJ leave his Facebook logged on, and a friend posted a long status update explaining that "I'm quitting DJing" for whatever reason. It was really long. It was actually very convincing, and I believed it at first because I hadn't talked to the guy in a really long time, so I didn't really know any better. When I found out it was fake, I honestly laughed. It was somewhat clever. If you were a DJ that had gigs regularly and a few thousand friends, it would be a lot more of a stab to scare them all into thinking that you were quitting DJing than it would be to say, I'm gay, I like dick. Repeatedly just saying, I'm gay, ta-da, is not only lazy, it's also unfunny and ultimately is a little bit homophobic.
Yes, it is a new and refreshing way to troll your friends' fans and give them a hard time. If you did have the time to do that, that is obviously a better option. But like you said, if your friend went to the bathroom, how much time do you really have? You have to type something fast.
As I said before when describing Quiplash, I don't mind the occasional gay joke, but when you have an opportunity to think about whatever joke you could play on your friend, and the only thing you can come up with as the worst thing that you can say to fuck with his life is that he's coming out of the closet as gay, that means you're not just non-creative, but you obviously really seem to think being gay must be some incredibly awful thing. It doesn't personally hurt my feelings if you ever make such a joke. I just think you are unfunny, unintelligent, and you should probably think about why exactly you still think it's funny to trick people into thinking that their friend is maybe gay. Your own foolishness is on you. Think about why you'd make such a stupid joke.
I'm going to come out and say this. I've done the whole I'm coming out as gay thing to my buddies on MySpace and Facebook before. It wasn't because I thought being gay was a terrible thing. It's because I'd be misrepresenting my friend's actual sexual orientation in which to cause him some grief. I didn't do it to make fun of gay people. I did it to mess with my friend.
Offensive humor can be great. It can ease a tense situation. It can prove to people that they can feel comfortable around you because you aren't judging them. And it can help individuals to break free from their problems for a while. However, people should always avoid using offensive humor as a crutch if there is a better option.
Again, it just really depends on a person's personal preference. On humor, whether they make jokes about offensive or non offensive things is their thing.
It's better to have love